In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up our Fusion 360, get a little acquainted with the user interface, and then also draw 2.1. So when we open up Fusion 360, we have this window. On the left-hand side, we have our browser. In here, we have our different origin. We can select if things are being viewed on or off. We can also have our different named views and some document settings. As we start creating different bodies and everything, you'll see that populate over here. In the center here, this is where we have our workspace. This is where we're actually going to be doing our sketching and extruding our different drawing. On the bottom left here, this is our timeline, and you will see that populate and grow as we continue to do our work. Now, with Fusion 360, we don't have to save on any sort of flash drive, as everything is saved in the cloud. So to be able to access that, we have our little waffle on the top left-hand side. So before we even save anything, what I want us to do is I want to show our data panel, which is on the left-hand side here. Now, each of these are different folders that I already have set up, but for you, you're not going to have all of these. So what I want us to do is I want us to click on New Project to create a new project, and we can name this Principles of Manufacturing. I'm going to name it POM because I already have a Principles of Manufacturing folder right there. But I'm going to create a new folder in there. After you've created a new folder, what I want you to do is double click that, and now we should see that there's nothing in here, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to save our drawing into there. So how I do that is you can either hit save there, or you can click on File, click File Save. And I'm going to name this is going to be 02.01, and we click Save. So then what you'll see is after you click Save, you'll see that this pops up. Now, Fusion is not like Google where it'll auto-save. You do need to save before you exit, otherwise you'll lose some settings. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to close that data panel. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to double check that our units for our drawing is going to be in inches. And how we do that is over here where it says document settings, we have our little triangle. We want to click on that, and we can see we have a little pop down where it has units, and mine is already set in inches, but we can change that active units. Fusion 360 defaults to millimeters, so we are going to change that active units from our, if you have millimeters, we want to switch it to inches for this one. Or if you prefer to be in millimeters later on, but for right now all of our drawings that we're going to be drawing are in inches, so we want to put as inch. If you'd like it to set up as, if you'd like to set it up that it always comes in inches, I mean mine's in millimeters just to show this, but you can set that as a default. I don't want mine to default to millimeters, I want mine to default to inch, so I would click on inch, select the check mark as the default, and then press OK. Alright, so there's a little tour of Fusion 360 to get started, and let's get started on our first drawing. So if we open up our print, you're going to notice that I have these printed off into 3 different sheets. And I'm going to be doing that for our first few so that we can step through how we would create these. These are all the same prints, but we start out with this one and we build on our previous steps to be able to create our models. All right. So this first one, we are just going to be making a box that is 5 inches tall by 3 inches wide by 1/2 inch thick. So to be able to do that, the first thing I need to do is we need to create our sketch. And this is going to be a lot like when we created our sketches in VCarve. So I'll go back and I'll do that again. I'm going to create a sketch, and for this I want to select my XY plane right here. So we have our X, which is our red line right there, our Y is our green, and our Z is our blue right there. What I want to do is I want to click on my XY plane, so it's going to be this bottom one. This front surface, that would be our XZ plane, and this would be our YZ plane. I don't want to do that, I want to select my XY plane, so I'm going to click on that plane right there. The next thing we're going to do is according to this, I need to make a rectangle that is 5 inches by 3 inches. So I'm going to go back to Fusion, and I'm going to create a 2-point rectangle. I'm going to hover my cursor over the origin to place my first corner, and I'm just going to click it and drag it up and to the right a little bit. Now, one neat little thing in Fusion is if I press Tab on my keyboard, I can select between my 2 dimensions. So my drawing said I wanted it to be 5 inches tall, so I'm going to have it on my vertical dimension, and I'm going to type in the number 5. Hit Tab again, so that I'm on my horizontal dimension, and I'm going to type in the number 3. And when I press Enter, I now have a rectangle that is 5 inches by 3 inches. So let's say you accidentally clicked over here before pressing Tab and entering your numbers. You can come in and you can edit your sizes of your rectangles. You can double click on that. So I'll do that again. I just double click on the dimension. It brings up my little text box, and I can change that to 5. But it's too big, so I want to change that back to 3. Okay. Another thing is, let's say we accidentally have a dimension that didn't come in. What we can do is we can click on the sketch dimension up there, and we can click on the vertical line right there, and we can type in 5. Now if you notice the color of these lines, these are all black, right? And that means that my lines can't move at all. And those are fully constrained. If you see a line that is blue at all, that means that it is not fully constrained and you're missing a couple of dimensions or constraints. So when we're sketching, we want to try and make sure that all of our lines are black and that we don't have any blue lines up there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put back in that dimension of 5 inches tall, and we are going to finish that sketch. Now we'll come back to the print, and we see that it is a 1/2 inch thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Extrude, which is this button right here. And Extrude not only adds material and joins material, but it also can cut away. So I'm going to select that area right here, and I'm going to type in 0.5, and that's going to create a 1/2 inch thick slab. All right. So that is our first sheet. We're going to move on to the second sheet, and we have a rectangle right here that is 3 inches wide, that is 1.5 inches tall, and it protrudes out a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go back to Fusion 360, and what I want to do is I want to put another sketch on here, and I'm just going to add on a layer, kind of like building up a birthday cake. So I'm going to create a sketch. I am going to select that top face right there, and I'm going to create another rectangle. Starting at our origin, I'm going to click, and if we bring our cursor over to the side, we can see that it snaps to that edge. We can either snap it, and that's called the constraint, or what we can do is we can press Tab and get between our two boxes right there, our dimensions. So per our print before, this was 1.5 inches tall by 3 inches wide, which is what we have. I type those in and hit Enter. And now we're going to finish that sketch. So we have our second sketch right there, and what we need to do is we need to extrude that up. So I'm going to hit Extrude, select that area that I want to extrude, and this one was also a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to type in 0.5. And now we see that we have that bottom little lip that comes up. So that concludes our second sheet. Our last sheet, we are going to be putting in a circle right here. And the circle has a diameter of 0.75, or 3/4 inch. And the center of this circle is 1 inch in from the left-hand side, and it is 1 inch down from the top. So we'll go back to Fusion. And what I want to do is I want to select this top face right here and put a sketch there. So I'm going to click on Create Sketch, and I'm going to select this top face right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a center diameter circle. So we click on the circle, and I'm just going to click and hold and drag out a little bit. And if I want to make my 0.75 diameter circle, I type in 0.75, just like that, and press Enter. All right, so we've got the right diameter, but we don't have the proper position yet. And if we notice our circle, the line is blue, and we're able to move this around. So to fully constrain this, we want to add some sketch dimensions. So I'm going to select my dimension. I'm going to select my left hand side and select my line right there. And I'm going to draw a dimension right there, and that was 1 inch in. So I type in 1. And now I'm going to do the same thing, except it's going to be for the top. And I type 1 inch right there. And now my circle is, the line is black. It's fully constrained. I can't move it around. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to click on extrude, and we select this inside profile. Now what I could do is I could extrude this up, and that would be joined, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to cut that. So we can either drag this down, or I can type in -50, or sorry, not -50, -0.5, just like that. And we want to make sure that it is cut in our operation right there. So when we hit OK, we can rotate this around, and we can see that we have a hole there. So the last thing that we want to do is we want to save this. So if we notice up on top here, we've got 02.01, which is the file that we saved over here before. With that, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have this saved, and we can see that it's not saved because there's a little star right there. So to be able to save this, what we're going to do is we're just going to click Save and press OK. And you can see that it's thinking, and it's going to be saving. And when that star disappears and when that's done spinning, our file is saved. So just to recap, we showed us how we have our browser over here. So we have our different bodies and our different sketches, which we'll reference later on. We have our timeline down here, which shows the different steps that we took to be able to create our drawing. We have our different tools on top. We have our data panel over here, and we learned how to sketch, draw, and save our work.